I don't think that you can be, and I'm curious to hear Oklahoma fans' take on this because, like, I don't watch. I mean, I don't watch every single Oklahoma game, right? But they're in the SEC. We have a vested interest, and outside of them not being in the SEC, Oklahoma is a brand that people have a vested interest in each and every single year. I don't think that you can afford to have another bad year under Brent Venables and think that that's going to propel you in a conference that's already so fierce and competitive, both in NIL, both in recruiting and on the field. I just don't think you can survive at a place like Oklahoma and do that. So, all these things to kind of say about 2025. What do we know from last year? Okay. Jackson Arnold, the faith that they put into him was, I don't want to say ill-advised, but it doesn't help when you have literally 6 receivers out, your entire offensive line, which, by the way, Will, you remember that show last year we talked about that could be a problem because they're nearly their entire offensive line hit the portal. You had that plus injuries, so you didn't have great depth essentially on that roster. Sometimes we know what we're talking about. They had a lot of weird scenarios happen, but the bottom line is results didn't take place. This is a results-based business. You can only put out the feel good aspect of it for so long. And I think Brent Venables is nearing the point where he's wearing out his welcome in Norman, because I don't think that you can kind of sit there and say, look, it's you have to win X amount of games. I don't think. But what I really, really do think is, look, last year you went 6-7. It is his second losing season in 3 years at Oklahoma. The first year they had a losing record, which with a roster that, it kind of got decimated a little bit, but this is still Oklahoma we're talking about. 2022 was their first losing season since 1998. He's 22-17 overall in his 3 years there. Will, I'll throw it to you here first because I think there has to be some sort of line drawn in the sand if you're Oklahoma's AD. And, let's just be real. Jim Nagy, the new Oklahoma general manager, which I do want to throw this in here before I throw it to you real quick. I do believe we're going to be seeing GMs making changes and front office changes for the football team on behalf of the AD. That's going to be your new governing body as we move into that. We've seen it with Andrew Luck and Stanford. I don't think you hire Jim Nagy just to bring him in for 1 year. Like, that's a guy you want to build your program and help be a part of that. So that being said, I think at some point you have to draw a line in the sand with Brent Venables. You like what he can be as a coach, but until the results show it, and I think it's a winning season. Like, you have to have something, and probably even beyond that, to give faith that he's the guy that can lead Oklahoma to a top 4, finish in the SEC at some point.
I agree with you. I mean, I think you've got to have something tangible to take beyond the 2025 season. I think you've got to win 7-8 games and win a bowl game. I mean,
yeah, they're 0-3 in bowl games, by the way, which is crazy.
And losing seasons in 2 of the last 3 years, going 6-7 last year after losing their bowl game. This is not a program that is used to watching to seeing that. I mean, 23 straight years, Oklahoma went with winning seasons. I mean, this is their worst stretch since the late 90s, since before Bob Stoops took over as a head coach. So they're kind of in uncharted territory. That's why, probably why they go out and get a GM, because things are looking so different outside of Norman, Oklahoma, and looking completely different than what anybody's used to inside Norman, Oklahoma. So I'm with you. I mean, I think they got to win. They got to have a winning record, win a bowl game. Obviously the problem has been the offense for Brent Venables. He goes out, he gets Ben Arbuckle from Washington State, gets John Mateer to be his quarterback from Washington State. So you keep that connection. Go out and get Jay Knott, who I think is a top 5 running back in the entire country. Get him to transfer from Cal. So the pieces are certainly there. If they can stay healthy up front, they should be more successful. If they're not, we're going to be looking at a new head coach in Oklahoma.
Ralph, Will kind of mentioned it there, but this is a program that is not used to it. Like he said, this is a program that during the Lincoln Riley years flirted with a national title appearance several times, flirted into the playoff, was largely enough, I guess, they feel like the little brother, but they were really the older brother to Texas during the Big 12, more Big 12 titles than Texas before they made the move to the SEC. What's your confidence level that, like Will said, like, you've got some potentially good talent and some good pairing, and everything on paper would tell you it has to be better, but we know the games aren't played on paper. So what's your confidence level in terms of Brent Venables leading this program here in 2025?
Well, I was pretty confident for a little bit until I read their schedule. when you go
Yeah, it's
you go
not fun.
Texas at South Carolina, Ole Miss at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, and LSU in the season, and and you get a bye week between Tennessee and Alabama. It's
Mhm.
not favorable for them, really, honestly, going this season because you don't really know what these guys are capable of to do together. I mean, obviously, John Mateer is a very talented quarterback, but he played in a lesser conference last year. You know, you really didn't play in a conference at all last year. Um, you know, can he do it in the SEC level? Probably. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
We really won't know until about week 2 when they play Michigan. You know, another team that's on that schedule that's really good. Especially coming off a year where they struggled all year long, beat Ohio State, and then won the bowl game against Alabama. They're riding the high with a new brand new quarterback. So Oklahoma's in a weird situation. I don't know if Venables is going to be gone if they have a average to below average year, which I say a 7-5 year from them would not be a horrible idea, but it's
Yeah.
still not. Obviously, Oklahoma fans said 8-4. I don't disagree with that. I think 8-4 would be the ceiling right now because the schedule is not favorable for them this year. It really is not.
You mentioned this. I think the pivotal part of the schedule in the next couple of weeks here, we're going to get into kind of a full preview of the team. But you look from October 11th to November 1st, okay? You play 4 consecutive weeks, like you mentioned. Home against Texas, at South Carolina. Yes, that's Cocktober. Home against Ole Miss, and at Tennessee. And then you get a bye week, and like you said, you face at Alabama, Missouri, and then LSU. That 4-game stretch from October the 11th to November 1st could not just make or break your season. It could make or break the fact if you're looking for a new head coach by the time they roll into Baton Rouge there in the final week of the season. So I think, look, to kind of put a pin on this and move on to the next coach, Brent Venables is on the hot seat as I think he should be. I think there is legitimate pressure for Oklahoma to be what they have been before. And I think it can happen, like to what you said, Will. I mean, look, when you put a guy like Arbuckle and you give him his quarterback and you give Mateer his OC, yeah, you might be wearing a different uniform and some personnel might be different, but here's the thing. The quality of athletes going to be better at Oklahoma than it was at Washington State a year ago. Yes, the schedule's harder, like you mentioned, Ralph, but when you don't have to go through as true of an install with a new OC and spring ball and kind of this individual summer workouts, I think that's something that maybe sneaky could help this team. But how much? You know what I mean? Like if you go 7-5 and you win a bowl game to go 8-5 and you have a top 15 recruiting class, maybe that's enough to buy him another year. I don't know. We'll see. So Brent Venables at Oklahoma.